Okay, we're live. Um, Hi, and welcome to Painting with Grody. I'm your host, Grody Shogun. Today we're going to do a quick little tutorial on how to paint Grody camo style. Um, Here's kind of a little sample, something you want to go somewhere in here. So I've already mixed up, I have all my figures laid out, I have them ready to go, I've got my paints laid out, thinned out. There's different thickness and thinness in the paints. So I'm going to be going quick, fast and quick, and laying it down and showing you guys how I do it, how we get it done. I usually start with my dark layer first. So I'm going to be doing this with one hand, so bear with me. Let's see how well this works. Um, so, camo is just kind of like made up of blocks of shape. So what you want to do is just kind of like lay down some colors first, or lay down some blocks of color first. And then, you turn it over, look at the other side. Try to do like, there's always like these kind of branches and stuff in camo as well, or this like sort of looks like foliage. So if you can see, what I'm doing is I'm taking just sort of like a big glob of paint in the brush and then just kind of, whacking it down and maybe dragging it across a bit. For this first layer of color, you're just sort of like blocking out color and stuff, just looking at like what lays where. And then you're gonna, kind of finesse it back in as you build up your next color. Camo is generally a dark, a mid-tone, and then a light. And then if you want to do like really traditional camo, you're gonna use like a black, a tan, and like a dark green. But there's a bunch of different camos you can fart around with. You can work within tones, you can work within hues. It's kind of fun. It's a fun little experiment in playing with color and looking at how colors interact with other colors. So I kind of like doing this stuff. It should be quick, it should be sort of meditative. You want to just kind of go to your happy place and get in a rhythm or a pattern. Because that's what you're doing. You're a pattern maker in this moment, for this moment. So just kind of lay your stuff down, give it a once over. Camo also tends to have a sort of emotion to it. Like generally there's like, if things are moving, they're moving in kind of like one direction. And I think that's what they figured out, like breaks up the eyesight, or it's like your eyes are looking for patterns. So camo's point is to try to like break up pattern while still being a printable pattern. And that was, I think, the challenge when they were coming up with camo was, well, how do you print something that shouldn't look like it's printed? So I don't know. It's cool to kind of trip out on camo. War, what are we here for? No, wait, what is it? War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. Say it again now. Huh. Yeah, so you can jam out while you're working. You can, trip out on wars and atrocities and humanity. Get weird, I guess, would be my suggestion. So yeah, I think the other point about camo is like it should be quick. Like you don't want to like labor over it too much, because then it'll have, it'll look like it's got a little bit too much of a stamp on it. So then I'm gonna go in with my mid, my highlight, but I'm actually working in this pastel green and hot pink. So, you know, technically, I guess this would be, you know, this is thick, that one's thin. So I like to do the thin stuff that I know is going to shine through as a last layer, because it will, you know, you will see those sort of other colors coming through it. Also, typically what I like to do in between each layers, I like to give it time to rest, let the paint kind of dry a bit. You can either, you know, break up your project, so you're just sort of like laying down your block of color, and then you have something else coming up you can walk away from, and then come back to it 30 minutes, an hour, what, you know, whatever. If you don't have time, oh, I forgot to, that's the one thing I forgot to set up. Normally I would have a heat gun nearby, so if I am just like, I want to just sit down and knock everything out at once, I'll just go over with a heat gun in between layers, and just sort of like kind of cook that top layer, and then, you know, flip them over, and then do all of the blue on the other side, cook those, flip that over. It is, the heat gun is a bit noisy, so I think I don't know how well it would transfer over for this type of tutorial. I'm still kind of figuring out how to do tutorials as well, so thank you guys for bearing with me. These will get a little bit more streamlined as I go. I put a call out for help with video editors, or if there's any video editor nerds that can help me. Let's see if this works. Let's see, is that noise horrible? Camera tripod setup is a little bit drunk, but okay. So, hello, right on. So we got everything, you know, laid out. As you can see, some of the parts that are thicker, at some point, you know, those are gonna take longer to dry. But for the most part, depending on your paint, you know, this paint, except for where it's pooled up, you know, it's pretty dry to the touch. It's gonna vary depending on what paints you're using. If you're not using my brand of paints, your brand of paints may have a different reaction. The temperature is going to affect your paint, the humidity is going to affect your paint. You know, all of these things can have a reaction with whatever paints you're using. If it's a particularly hot day or a cold day or a dry day or whatever. So as you can see, you know, everything has a bit of a drip that goes around, you know, where it was in excess is now dripped through to the other side. So I'm going to use those as sort of like a guideline for then doing this backside layer of the blue base, so that, you know, we're going to be painting front and back all kind of like in the same time. So hopefully now I can do this a little bit quicker. I need to get a better tripod set up, or at some point I'd like to get a, you know, multi-camera, you know, get it all geeked out and like do these as like edited videos that have different camera angles, so they're more visually pleasing to watch. But, you know, if you're just listening to this stuff while you work, you know, you want to just have this kind of like playing in the background. Or if you want to try doing a paint like this, you know, you can, you know, watch it up close and then hear me kind of like see how it's done and walk through it. You know, Bob Ross style, some happy little trees. We'll do happy little camo goes here, and there's no mistake in the world of camouflage. You just want to conceal your identity at all time. Yeah, I like the kind of, you know, weird social context or social metaphors for camouflage, and, you know, how it's popular within the fashion scene, or how it's popularized within other things, and this kind of like normalization of what, military, of force, of kind of all of these things that we hold tried and true, nationalism, identity, you know, all this stuff is all sort of tied into that kind of sense of patriotism and whatnot. And then also, you know, just the conversation of war. You know, the conversation of why you would need to like hide from the enemy. What, you know, what do you try to do? You're like, no, I don't like what you guys are doing over there. I'm gonna come over there and fucking shoot the shit out of you, blow you guys up. You know, trip out on that. There's wars going on all over the world. We're a warring, fighting civilization of angry little paint monkeys just spinning around on the rock. I always feel like if you're gonna do YouTube rambling, you gotta get a bit esoteric. You know, I gotta link this up with like ancient aliens and you know talk about like all this other weirdo stuff so that you know you guys like keep listening. I'd love to have guests on at some point. You know, right now my setup is pretty small, but once I get everything a bit more up and rolling, I'd like to bring in guest painters, guest artists. You guys can see how they paint stuff. You can ask them any questions that you have. I think that would be cool. Seems like something could be fun. I'm gonna move the camera here so you can see. Let's see. Big loud sound. So here's the back side. You can see where I've used, you know, I've sort of thinned down the paint. It'll leave lighter streaks. There's a difference in color. This blue on this bright yellow is making a like a green. So it's cool when colors actually kind of like change and morph as they go between the different base colors. I think it just kind of gives it a little bit more, kind of something else for your eyes to look at. But yeah, so I will always thin my paints down first so that I get this, you know, real kind of like thinner, washier layers in. And then if I go back over and hit it again, hit it with a heavier, so it's much thicker and doesn't bleed through. And that's going to give you, again, just that sort of like variation on look and texture. Excuse me. So that would count as one side or one, you know, one base. That's the, you know, base dark color. And then as you have, so since you have this base dark color down, then you're going to sort of use that as your template for the next color, knowing that there's then going to be a color on top of that. So either you want a lot of the vinyl color to shine through, so you're going to keep your colors, the next color you come in, you're going to go in more, you're going to follow kind of like these lines, so everything's sort of touching. Or if you want to spread it out, fan it out so that the base color isn't shining through as much, you're going to avoid the spots that you've already laid down. And then, you know, that'll give you an idea of either, you know, you want it to be like super paint heavy, you know, and cover the whole thing up, or you want it to have the vinyl coming through, but then also bring in those other colors. So, you know, that's just up to you. Sometimes what I'll do is if I have many of the same color, same kind, I'll do one with a, you know, really thin, sparse sort of coloring pattern, and then one with a thicker, heavier coloring pattern, and then just decide, you know, as I go through a layer, be like, you know, and I'll do a test of both, and then just sort of see which ones pop out, which ones don't, which ones I like more or not. Okay, so let's put this back on the old trusty, noisy tripod. Not sure how great of an angle this is. This is a kind of a wonky little tripod setup I have as well. Okay, take a big gulp of tea. You know, you can check to see if it's dry or not. Generally, it should be. You should be okay. So flipping back over. So when I work, I like to make sure that I have everything kind of like in a way that I can lay out, and I can just turn them, I can just flip them, and then just go back and back, front and back, front and back. If you don't have space, try and work out a system that you're moving as you're going through the pile. You're painting one and you're putting it over here, and then as you do the other color, you're painting and putting it over there. Just try to move stuff kind of back and forth a bit assembly line-ish, and you should be able to knock the stuff out fairly quick. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go in with my green. I'm liking the way that the green is kind of going over this blue here and creating some of it's melting in with the blue, so the blue's coming through. It's making some dark greens in some places. So yeah, you never really quite know like how the paints are going to interact with one another. What that your opaqueness is going to do with the the other things. So it's good to kind of give a little test shot, and just sort of like as you're doing it, just keep an eye on what's going where, and how's that look, and should you be slapping more stuff or should you be dragging more stuff. Just kind of futz around with the as you're doing. Futz around with the amount, and sometimes when I'm doing this stuff, actually, one thing that I do like to do is just work like without even looking at it, just without even getting like focus on it, and just like going nuts, just super Jackson Pollocky, just throwing colors down and just seeing what sticks where. I think one of the problems with doing this stuff is, you can get a little bit too in your head about, where should I go or what should I do? When I do paint this, normally I do it with both hands, and I'm not sure if I'm in the focus or not, but I'll kind of fling it around, and as you fling it, it gives you these sort of long tendrils of paint that you wouldn't normally think to do with a brush. So that helps kind of take a little bit of your hand out of it, and giving it some other effect look that you yourself wouldn't have thought of. Just kind of, smack it on, splash it around. Keep whacking stuff because of this short field that I'm working in. Once I get a better camera set up, that should help. So, as you can see sideways, but we've got these like little splashes or flings of paint. See if I can work. I'll just swing it down by my hip. There you go. So, I give you these kind of like long lines of stuff. And I don't know, I mean, for me, I find that kind of like interesting. I like color and movement and lines and things like that. And kind of just working loose and quick, and just seeing, all your little happy accidents, all your little happy trees, and, see, oh, there's a waterfall in there. Oh, let's give this little happy waterfall a babbling brook friend, or, whatever. But, you're just going to kind of like look where, see where color's sitting and see if you like them or not. Do you love me? Okay, last one here. I'll do this guy. Without really looking, and just throw paint on, move it around. Oop, get a little wild in here. Always good to leave some little piece of vinyl inside so it rattles around like a children's rattle. There you go. I'll paint it up. Okay, so next we will do So there's our top layer of green. Again, just kind of like, putting stuff in a little bit loose, getting a little bit of direction, seeing where it goes. Well, I did that back one already, but these other ones will do. No, these ones don't have the back. So, turn them over, flip them like so, and then I'm running low on paint, so add your paint. Okay, and then now we do the backside layer. I just realized I wasn't talking. This is hard. This is like, walking and chewing bubblegum, man. Kudos to the people that have figured out how to do this well and entertaining. This is a lot harder than it looks, but I'm sure once I get the better setup, better camera thing going, that should alleviate some of these issues I'm having here. We will see. So again, lay in your colors, slap them down, move it around. You want to work quickly. You don't want to overthink it, or you don't want to spend a bunch of time going, should I put it here or should I put it there? It's camo, so it should be loose. And I find the more kind of time you sort of labor over it, the more it just kind of tends to look a bit labored. So, figure that out for yourselves. Okay, so there is our second layer, front and back, our dark, our light. Here's where I would really, really want to hit it with the heat gun, because we have, that kind of like, not wet, but just sort of a moister layer down, and then we're throwing a bunch of paint on top. So it's kind of, you want to think of this of just the more paints you just keep throwing on it, the wetter and kind of stickier and harder it is to work, especially if the paint you're using is really sticky. So, you want to work cleanly as you can. That's why I tend to, if you notice, the feet tend to not have a lot of paint on them, because I'll usually grab them by the feet as I rotate stuff around, just to try to keep your fingerprints off of things. So yeah, this stuff needs to cook for just a little bit. And since I don't have my hairbrush, why don't you take a look at this lovely mug. Thank you, everyone. I want to say thanks for everybody who has been following on Instagram, on Facebook. Letting me, whenever I take my hat off, I always get these comments of like, whoa, nice hair or something. So I gotta like fan out my duck feathers if I'm gonna be speaking to you, my adoring audience. But yeah, I've been getting a ton of great feedback, a lot of great questions. Thank you, everybody that's been joining me so far, that's been following along as I'm stumbling through the trials and tribulations of spreading information to the masses. I've got a lot of great feedback about people thanking me for the stuff that we talk about, for sort of bringing an open and frank feel and vibe to all of it all. Hopefully I can carry that through. I'd like to start doing, as I was saying, bring people into the place, interviewing people, doing other tutorials, going to other places, giving you guys just like a much better, deeper window into how all of our favorite sausages are made. So thank you, everybody who's come along, who's been following along. Thank you for everybody that's joining, that's coming along. You haven't seen it yet, you're just seeing this now, and you're like, cool, I want to go back. There's a bunch of rambles, not a bunch, there's a handful of rambles, but I'm going to try to start ramping up all of these little rambling tutorials, and then hopefully condense that stuff down into an edited video that is streamlined, looks, fits in with kind of the YouTube zeitgeist look and feel of it all. So, you know, let's all thumbs up to that. So thanks everyone. I'm gonna go back in. This is probably not, you know, not the super driest, but just for not having a crazy long video, I'm gonna try to keep these things short, try to keep these tutorials short and pack in as much info as I can, and then, yeah, see, still not dry, okay. And then make these a bit more condensed. But yeah, like I said, generally I would, especially going through those layers, I'd give them some time to kind of cook, set in. I'd go over with a heat gun. But you know, we're working fast and wild here. So I'm gonna put the camera down for one last time and do my what is it? No, stop. Get in the, why won't you go in your home? Are you too good for your home? Okay, let's see. Does it stand? Okay, seems okay. All right. Thank you everyone for bearing with me here. Okay. So we are. So we're gonna layer pink down over it. It looks like some of the, when I was splashing around, some of the green got into the pink, so there's a little bit of a whiteness in there. And then you want to just kind of like see where colors lie, see what it looks like. You know, does it look good when it goes over stuff? Does it look good when it misses the space? Is it getting muddy? You want to be careful not to get too muddy, but you want to kind of like get some, you know, just get some colors on there. So, all right, I'm gonna try to knock these out here. You won't be able to see as much because don't have that camera set up right, but this is how I would normally do it, which is just paint like really fast, swing it wildly around the room. I've got paint drops on literally every single thing that I own. If you ever find any random paint drops on your toys, sorry. So I'm liking this color. I'm really liking the way the pink sits on this bright yellow. When you are choosing colors, I always like to look at what is my base vinyl color, and you know, does it look like it's going to interact with colors in an interesting way? You know, what do I want to do with that? Okay, so yeah, you know, just try to kind of think about your palette, your hues, your colors, your base vinyl, whatever it is that you're going to be painting, where it is that you want to be, you know, where you want it to go, what you want it to look like. And just with a little bit of practice, you'll get this down in no time. It is really one of the easier, quicker ones that I think has a cool, interesting effect. It seems that people tend to like, or whenever I do these, whoa, okay, well, we just lost one. When I do these camo ones, they tend to sell pretty well. I like that there's camo as sort of a trope within this, you know, community. There are certain colorways or certain looks of things that have been done by a lot of different people, and I think people like to see the variations on, you know, this guy's take on how he does camo and that guy's take on his camo, and you know, sort of all of the things in between. So it's kind of cool, like if you are, you know, if you're starting out painting or you're thinking about like what you should paint and stuff, try painting different tropes. You know, look at what are some standard colorways or some standard kinds of things that people paint, and you know, give it your sort of your take on it. You know, fart around with the paints, fart around with thicknesses, fart around with you know, just sort of all that stuff. Look at your environment where you're painting. Is it, you know, fun and conducive and enjoyable for you to be there? Does it get your creative juices flowing? Does it, you know, wet your whistle? And if it doesn't, or if it's just, you know, it's more of a chore to like paint stuff, look into setting up changing the way your place is set up. But if everything's good and it's humming along, but you're just kind of like, I wonder, how I should paint this, or I wonder what I should, that's always sort of the hard part too, is like, okay, make something cool and interesting and go, and you're like, okay, what's cool and interesting to you people? So, just kind of like lay in your colors. Just bring stuff in as much as you can. So I don't know how well the camera is going to be picking this up, but this pink, this hot pink that I'm laying over this pink actually doesn't shine through all that much. But it does give it kind of like a little bit of a brighter hue than the vinyl that it's going on. So even though it's not really shining through, it does give it like kind of a nice sheen that it didn't have without the paint. So I guess also try to be mindful of whatever the finish is, what it is that you're gonna like try to go for. Okay. Last one, home stretch. Bring in our sort of weird colors. I like the way this pink is working on top of this blue, or this pink is working on top of this purple. This is the same purple as these little boy heads, the hair in the little boy heads, so I might go over those with the purple just because I like the kind of like that coloring that it makes. Okay, so that's the short and rough of it. I hope that makes sense. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any questions, if anything, if there's anything that you don't understand, or anything that you like. So from here, I'm going to go back in and I'll probably give it, maybe just go over one more time with like another color, and just kind of blend it in a little bit. Then I'm going to hit them with the airbrush, give them just a little bit of details. I'll probably put eyes in here. I'll put eyes in here. And we're going to, knock this stuff out. So these will be at Wonder Festival, Makohari Messe, end of this month. No, when is it? It's soon. It's in like 2 weeks. I should figure out. No, the beginning of February? I don't know. Look it up. It's called Google for a reason. So, all right, guys. Thanks very much. Like, subscribe, do all that jazz, and I'll be your best friend. Okay, guys.